We often hear the phrase, nobody's perfect, but how many of us truly believe it? In a world where we are constantly exposed to images of flawless beauty, success, and happiness, it's easy to forget that imperfection is not only natural, but necessary. Our flaws, the things we wish we could hide, are actually what make us beautifully human. Today, I want to talk about the power of embracing our imperfections and how they shape who we are. Imperfection is often seen in a negative light. We are taught from an early age to strive for perfection in everything: our appearance, our work, and even our relationships. Whether it's a school assignment, a job interview, or simply the way we look, there's always pressure to meet high standards. However, the pursuit of perfection can be exhausting and, more often than not, unattainable. It's crucial to realize that imperfection is not something to be ashamed of, but rather something to be celebrated. Every single one of us has flaws, and these imperfections are part of what makes us unique. Some may have a crooked smile, others may stumble over their words in moments of stress, or perhaps we carry scars from past experiences. These physical and emotional marks don't diminish our value, they enhance it. They tell the story of who we are, the struggles we've faced, and the resilience we've developed along the way. Our imperfections connect us to one another because they reveal our shared humanity. If we were all perfect, we would lack the empathy and understanding that come from overcoming challenges. When we begin to embrace our imperfections, we open ourselves up to growth. Mistakes are not failures, they are opportunities for learning. When we take risks and make errors, we discover new paths, refine our skills, and build character. Think about the times in your life when you made a mistake, whether it was failing a test or falling short of a personal goal. Instead of dwelling on the setback, you likely found a way to grow from it. Imperfections give us the chance to evolve and become better versions of ourselves. The fear of being imperfect can often hold us back, but if we accept it, we gain the courage to move forward with confidence. The world today places so much pressure on us to present an image of flawlessness, especially with the rise of social media. We scroll through pictures of perfectly curated lives, wondering why we don't measure up. But behind those perfectly posed photos, there are real people with real struggles, just like us. This societal expectation to always appear perfect can damage our mental health and self-esteem. It's important to remind ourselves that these curated snapshots don't reflect the full reality of anyone's life. No one's life is as flawless as it seems online. When we recognize this, we can begin to let go of the need to compete with others and accept our own imperfections. Self-acceptance is key to truly embracing our flaws. It's not about giving up on self-improvement, but rather about recognizing that our imperfections are part of our whole selves. They don't define us, but they shape our experiences and contribute to the richness of our lives. When we accept ourselves as we are, flaws and all, we cultivate a sense of inner peace. This acceptance allows us to stop comparing ourselves to others and start appreciating our own journey. Furthermore, by embracing our flaws, we can create a more compassionate world. It's easy to judge others when we hold ourselves to impossible standards, but when we recognize our own imperfections, we become more empathetic toward others. We learn that everyone is fighting their own battles, and we begin to offer kindness and support instead of judgment. Our flaws create space for connection, understanding, and love. In conclusion, embracing our imperfections is not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of strength. It is in our flaws that we find the courage to grow, the opportunity to connect, and the freedom to be ourselves. Rather than striving for an unattainable perfection, let us focus on celebrating the imperfections that make us uniquely who we are. When we embrace our humanity in its entirety, flaws and all, we not only become more authentic, but we also inspire others to do the same. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. Life is a journey filled with challenges, obstacles, and moments of doubt. Often we find ourselves trying to avoid mistakes and flaws, believing that they are something to be feared or ashamed of. However, what if I told you that growth doesn't happen in the absence of imperfection, but rather because of it? It's through our mistakes and shortcomings that we often discover the most about ourselves, others, and the world around us. In fact, it is in the very act of facing our imperfections that we unlock the potential to grow and transform. The first step to understanding growth through imperfection is recognizing that no one is exempt from making mistakes. No matter how skilled, intelligent, or experienced we may be, we all have moments when we stumble, fail, or fall short of our expectations. The key to growth is not in avoiding these imperfections, but in how we choose to respond to them. When we accept that making mistakes is part of the human experience, we open ourselves to the possibility of learning and improvement. Think about some of the most significant lessons you've learned in life. Chances are, those lessons didn't come from times when everything went smoothly. Instead, they emerge from moments of failure, discomfort, or uncertainty. Whether it was a difficult conversation, a failed project, or a personal setback, it was in these imperfections that you gain clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of yourself. Imperfection is not a roadblock to success. It is the very thing that drives it. Every misstep teaches us something valuable, whether it's about resilience, patience, or the ability to adapt. For example, think about the process of learning a new skill. When we first start, we are often clumsy, uncertain, and prone to making mistakes. But with every error, we adjust, improve, and refine our abilities. This process of trial and error is essential for growth. It teaches us that perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. By embracing our mistakes, we allow ourselves the freedom to experiment, explore, and innovate. Without the willingness to make errors, we would never push ourselves to reach new heights. It is easy to become discouraged by our imperfections, especially in a world that often values success and achievement above all else. In a culture obsessed with perfection, failure can feel like a personal reflection of our worth. However, the reality is that failure is not a reflection of who we are, but a part of the journey. The people we admire, the ones who have failed great things, are often the ones who have failed the most. The difference lies in their ability to learn from their mistakes, grow from them, and continue moving forward with renewed strength and wisdom. Moreover, growth through imperfection also teaches us humility. When we recognize that we are not perfect and that we have room to grow, we become more open to feedback, more willing to ask for help, and more ready to listen to others. Imperfection encourages us to be humble because it reminds us that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. We don't have to be perfect to make progress. What matters is our willingness to keep going, to adapt, and to learn from each experience. One of the most important lessons we can learn from imperfection is the ability to embrace vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect, we become more authentic and relatable to others. We break down the walls of perfection that separate us from the people around us and create connections based on shared experiences. Our imperfections become bridges, not barriers, to building meaningful relationships. In the end, growth through imperfection is about shifting our perspective. Instead of viewing imperfections as setbacks, we can see them as opportunities for growth, self-discovery, and transformation. It's about accepting that perfection is not the destination, but the journey itself. When we embrace our flaws, we unlock the door to endless possibilities for personal development. By learning to grow through our imperfections, we become more resilient, compassionate, and confident in who we are. The next time you face a challenge or make a mistake, remember that it is not a failure. It is an opportunity to grow and evolve into the best version of yourself. In today's world, we are constantly surrounded by cultural and social pressures that shape our views, behaviors, and even our sense of self-worth. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded by expectations set by society. What we should wear, how we should act, what we should achieve, and how we should look. These pressures come from many different sources, including family, friends, the media, and even our own internal voices. While these pressures may seem harmless at first, they can have a profound impact on our mental and emotional well-being if left unchecked. Cultural and social pressures often create unrealistic standards that are nearly impossible to live up to. In many cultures, there are specific ideals of success, beauty, and behavior that everyone is expected to meet. Whether it's the pressure to excel academically, be financially successful, or maintain a particular body type, society frequently imposes these standards without considering the individuality of each person. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy and a constant struggle to meet external expectations, even if they don't align with our true desires or values. The rise of social media has only amplified these pressures. We see perfectly curated images and seemingly perfect lives on our feeds, which often leads us to compare ourselves to others. Social media platforms have made it easier for people to present an idealized version of themselves, and many of us fall into the trap of measuring our lives against these distorted representations of reality. What we often forget is that behind every picture and post, there is a person with their own challenges, insecurities, and imperfections. Yet the constant exposure to these perfect images can make us feel as though we're falling behind, creating a sense of inadequacy. These societal pressures don't just affect how we see others, they also influence how we see ourselves. We internalize these standards, and before we know it, we're trying to live up to an ideal that isn't truly ours. We may begin to measure our worth based on external achievements, whether that's academic success, physical appearance, or social status, rather than embracing our unique qualities and strengths. This can lead to a lack of self-esteem and an overwhelming sense of dissatisfaction as we continually feel like we're not good enough. The pressure to conform to societal expectations can also impact our mental health. The stress of trying to meet these standards can lead to anxiety, depression, and burnout. The fear of judgment or rejection can make us feel like we're constantly under a microscope, and this fear can paralyze us, preventing us from pursuing our true passions or living authentically. When we are more focused on meeting the approval of others than on our own happiness, we lose sight of what truly matters to us. What is often overlooked in the discussion of cultural and social pressures is how they perpetuate a cycle of comparison and competition. Instead of fostering an environment of support and collaboration, society often promotes individualism, where the goal is to stand out and be better than others. This creates a toxic mindset, where people feel they must be constantly striving to outdo one another, instead of celebrating their own achievements and learning from one another's experiences. Breaking free from these cultural and social pressures requires a shift in mindset. It starts with recognizing that these societal standards are not one size fits all. Each person has their own journey, and what works for one individual may not work for another. It's essential to embrace our individuality and to value our own unique experiences rather than seeking validation from external sources. Additionally, it's crucial to be mindful of the messages we consume and share on social media. Instead of focusing on the highlight reel of someone else's life, we should aim to engage in more authentic and meaningful connections that encourage growth and self-acceptance. It's also important to surround ourselves with people who support us for who we are, not just for what we've accomplished or how we appear. In conclusion, cultural and social pressures are a significant force in our lives, but they don't have to define us. We have the power to challenge these expectations and create our own paths based on what truly matters to us. By embracing our imperfections, rejecting unrealistic standards, and valuing our individuality, we can foster a sense of self-worth that is independent of societal approval. True happiness comes not from meeting external expectations, but from accepting and celebrating who we are, flaws and all. In a world that constantly pushes us to improve, succeed, and be the best version of ourselves, it's easy to forget the importance of self-acceptance. We're often told that to be happy or fulfilled, we need to change something about ourselves, whether it's our appearance, our habits, or our mindset. But what if the secret to true happiness lies not in changing who we are, but in fully embracing and accepting ourselves as we are? Self-acceptance is the foundation of genuine well-being. It means recognizing that we are enough, just as we are, without the need for constant validation or comparison to others. It's about embracing both our strengths and our weaknesses, acknowledging our imperfections, and understanding that they are a part of what makes us unique. It is the recognition that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love, success, and happiness. In a society that celebrates achievements and external appearances, self-acceptance can sometimes feel like a radical act. We're bombarded with images of what success and perfection look like, and it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we need to fit those molds in order to be valued. Social media, for example, often highlights curated versions of life, filtered photos, idealized lifestyles, and a constant stream of accomplishments. These portrayals can make us feel inadequate, leading us to believe that we aren't good enough as we are. But the truth is, no one's life is flawless, and comparing ourselves to an idealized version of others only robs us of the peace and satisfaction that comes from self-acceptance. One of the first steps towards self-acceptance is letting go of self-judgment. We are often our own harshest critics, focusing on our perceived flaws and mistakes rather than celebrating our successes and progress. We beat ourselves up for not being as successful or perfect as we think we should be. However, this negative self-talk only reinforces feelings of inadequacy. The key to self-acceptance is shifting the narrative in our mind. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we should focus on all that we have and all that we are. This shift in perspective is not about ignoring our shortcomings, but about acknowledging them, without allowing them to define our worth. Another important aspect of self-acceptance is learning to embrace our imperfections. We all have things about ourselves that we would like to change, whether it's our physical appearance, our past mistakes, or our personality traits. But it's essential to understand that these imperfections don't make us less valuable. In fact, they often add depth to our character and contribute to our growth. It's through our struggles and challenges that we learn, evolve, and become stronger. Accepting our imperfections means understanding that they are not weaknesses, but opportunities for growth and self-improvement. Self-acceptance also involves setting healthy boundaries and learning to say no. In a world that demands so much of our time and energy, it's important to prioritize our well-being. Saying no doesn't make us selfish, it makes us self-respecting. By recognizing our limits and protecting our mental and emotional health, we show ourselves the same care and consideration that we would offer a loved one. Self-acceptance means understanding that it's okay to put ourselves first when necessary. Moreover, self-acceptance is rooted in self-love. It's not about becoming complacent or giving up on personal growth. Instead, it's about recognizing that we are deserving of love, respect, and happiness right now in this moment as we are. When we truly love and accept ourselves, we stop seeking approval from others and stop measuring our worth based on external validation. We begin to set goals and pursue dreams not because we feel like we should, but because they align with our authentic desires. Ultimately, self-acceptance is a journey, not a destination. It requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to let go of unrealistic expectations. It's about understanding that we are enough, even in our most imperfect state. When we accept ourselves, we create a solid foundation for growth, happiness, and fulfillment. We stop chasing external ideals and start living in alignment with our true selves. And when we embrace who we are, we give others the permission to do the same. So let's stop striving for an impossible version of ourselves and instead focus on loving and accepting the person we already are. Remember, you are enough, just as you are. In a world that often values conformity, there is something truly powerful in celebrating diversity, especially when it comes to imperfection. We are all unique individuals, each with our own backgrounds, experiences, strengths, and weaknesses. Yet society often pressures us to fit into certain molds, creating unrealistic expectations of what is right or acceptable. But it's in our differences, in our imperfections, that we find the richness of human experience and the beauty of diversity. Rather than seeing imperfection as something to be hidden or corrected, we should embrace it as an essential part of who we are. Imperfection is not something to be ashamed of, it's something to be celebrated. The imperfections that make us different are the very things that allow us to connect with one another. They create spaces for empathy, understanding, and growth. We all have flaws, and those flaws tell the stories of our lives. They speak to our struggles, our journeys, and the lessons we've learned along the way. Without them, we would be shallow and incomplete, lacking the depth and texture that make us truly human. When we accept and celebrate our imperfections, we open the door to greater connection and a deeper sense of community. Diversity itself is a celebration of the differences that make us who we are. It encompasses our varied cultures, perspectives, and ways of living. But diversity also includes our individual imperfections, the quirks, vulnerabilities, and challenges that we face as we navigate life. These imperfections are not something to be overcome or hidden. They are part of what makes each person's story unique. Just as no two people are alike, no two paths in life are the same. It is through these differences that we learn, grow, and enrich our lives. Embracing diversity in all its forms, whether it's in culture, appearance, personality, or abilities, enriches our communities and fosters an environment where everyone is valued for who they are. In many ways, the celebration of imperfection can break down the barriers that divide us. When we acknowledge that nobody is perfect, it becomes easier to empathize with others. We begin to see that every person carries their own burdens and has their own struggles, just like we do. We can relate to one another not because we are all the same, but because we understand the shared human experience of imperfection. This mutual understanding creates stronger bonds and a more compassionate society. It reminds us that we are all works in progress and that growth is not about achieving perfection, but about embracing our humanity, flaws and all. In addition to fostering empathy, celebrating imperfection encourages personal growth. When we stop striving for an unattainable standard of perfection, we free ourselves to be authentic. We no longer feel the need to hide our true selves behind masks or facades. Instead, we can show up as we are, imperfect but real. This authenticity invites others to do the same, creating a space where people feel safe to be vulnerable and honest. When we are able to accept ourselves and others in their imperfections, we foster an environment of acceptance and inclusivity. This is the kind of society where everyone feels like they belong, regardless of their flaws or differences. Celebrating diversity and imperfection also encourages creativity and innovation. When we stop trying to fit into rigid molds, we create space for new ideas and perspectives to emerge. It's often in our mistakes and failures that we discover new solutions, new ways of thinking, and new ways of being. Imperfection, far from limiting us, opens up the possibility for growth, innovation, and change. When we accept and appreciate the diversity of imperfection, we unlock the full potential of human creativity. Ultimately, the celebration of diversity and imperfection leads to a richer, more compassionate world. When we learn to appreciate and value one another for who we truly are, flaws and all, we create a society that is kinder, more inclusive, and more understanding. Our imperfections make us unique, and that uniqueness is something worth celebrating. By embracing our differences and acknowledging the beauty in imperfection, we create a world where everyone can feel accepted, valued, and appreciated. So let us celebrate diversity in all its forms. Let us celebrate the imperfections that make us who we are, and let us honor the uniqueness of each individual. In doing so, we not only enrich our own lives, but also create a more compassionate and connected world for everyone. In embracing the beauty of imperfection, we unlock the true potential of diversity and human connection. Our flaws make us unique, and it is through them that we learn, grow, and evolve. By accepting ourselves and others as we are, we create a more inclusive and compassionate world. Let us celebrate what makes us different and recognize that it is our imperfections that truly bring us together. In doing so, we foster a world where everyone is valued for their authenticity.